Hello everyone and welcome to TV Talks, a show where I take a look at both the good and the bad of what television has to offer. You remember my Tiny Toons review? Well, that went over pretty well. A lot of people liked it. And a lot of people also wanted me to talk about another Steven Spielberg produced Saturday morning cartoon, Animaniacs, perhaps the most popular and longest lasting out of the 5 Steven Spielberg produced cartoons. Which, who knows, maybe I'll get to all of them one day, we'll kinda have to see. This came off about a couple years after Tiny Toons did because that show really took off and it really helped make animation respected again. So Tom Ruegger and Steven Spielberg got back together. It's not really like they ever left though, but they decided to get together and make a new show, Animaniacs, which would take all the good parts of Tiny Toons, all the stuff that made it successful, like the pop culture stuff, the adult jokes, and really run with it. So a whole bunch of the writing staff and even some of the actors got together in a boardroom one day and just spent the entire day shooting out ideas for characters. Because unlike Tiny Toons, this wouldn't have one set series of main characters, it would have a ton of them. Although they would take place in the same universe and most of the time in the same area, and would frequently interact with each other, this would be more of a sketch show than it would be about one ensemble cast. A lot of them were approved on the spot. Other ones like Mindy and Buttons actually were rejected at first. I'll talk about them in a minute. And eventually Animaniacs came out and it was a actually even bigger hit than Tiny Toons. Whether it be the score by Richard Stone or some of the most beloved characters in that, it really took off. And it lasted actually a lot longer than Tiny Toons as well. And ending right up to when Spielberg decided no longer to work with Warner Brothers with their animation department because of a certain other show involving a character from Tiny Toons and 2 characters from Animaniacs that I'm sure we all know about. But that's beside the point. In order to review Animaniacs, I need to talk about each of the segments individually because there are a ton of them and they all have varying levels of quality. First of all, let's talk about the main segments, the Warner's segments. They're named after Warner Brothers obviously, but there's 2 Warner Brothers and 1 Warner sister, Yakko, Wakko, and Dot. Yakko is basically the leader of the group and has the craziest schemes. Wakko is just the most out there and weird, like eating a lot and saying a lot of weird things. And then Dot is probably the most sarcastic, being, well, a little girl with quite the mouth. They often go around the world, or mostly just stay in the area, and just mess with terrible, terrible people. And Dr. Scratch and Sniff. You see, Dr. Scratch and Sniff is the German psychiatrist for the Warner Brothers studio, which is where the Warners live. They live in the water tower, because they were locked away in there after being too insane. And he is trying to pretty much sensitize them and make them normal, but they keep bugging him. But it's not out of malicious intent, it's just because that's what the Warners were created to do all those years ago, and they kind of have no choice but to make people's lives miserable. They can't help it, and they're not trying to be mean. And actually, in some cases, like the one where Scratch Sniff gets a parking ticket, and they try to help get him out of it, they're trying to actually help him. It's just that their methods are not very good. But yeah, like I said, they do go to people that actually deserve the punishment. Such as a stubborn, greedy bear who is having a garage sale and scams people into buying garbage. And even the Mafia at one point. Very, very few of these cartoons don't work, and I can't really name any offhand. One of my favorites with them is called Baloney and Kids. It's about the Warners messing with this Barney character, but in actuality they can't get through his head, and in fact he starts annoying them to the point where they're actually scared to death of him, because he is a very, very unstable, unnatural kind of person, dinosaur, whatever he is. It's just not safe, and he is completely off his rocker. These shorts are very consistently funny and also have the most innuendos. One of the things that Animaniacs is very, very well known for is its "Good night, everybody" innuendos, with the nurse character especially. Yakko is the one that often contributes to these, although Dot and Wakko get their fair share as well. But yeah, these are the ones that have the most in it, and they are always funny. So yeah, the Warners are very, very good, and they deserve to be the main segments in Animaniacs. Next, I'm sure you've heard of these guys, Pinky and the Brain. They were so popular that they even got their own spin-off show. It's about 2 lab mice named Pinky and the Brain. Don't ask why it's the Brain and not just Brain. It's never really said, I think. As the name suggests, Brain is highly intelligent, while on the other hand, Pinky is absolutely idiotic and insane. although there is a very implausible and illogical theory that Brain is actually the dumb one, which doesn't make any sense, and is highly contributed by a definition coined by Dr. Phil. Thank you, Dr. Phil. But anyways, Pinky and the Brain was very popular because although it was a little bit formulaic with Brain coming up with a plan to take over the world and then Pinky somehow kind of ruining it or just society ruining it and then they go back to the drawing board. The ways that they would vary it up and the lengths that Brain would go to take over the world was always really endearing. In fact, a lot of people, myself included, would always root for Brain in the end because we liked him and he wasn't trying to take over the world because he's evil. He was doing it because he thinks that he could save mankind from all of its flaws and all of its evils. Because he is more intelligent than most of the humans out there, and he really thinks that he could benefit society. Now, what is Pinky gonna do when he takes over the world? What kind of roles is he gonna have? It changes up a lot. But Pinky stays around Brain because he believes that Brain can really benefit society. He's a really, really good friend, and also because he's Pinky, he doesn't really have anything else to do except for just say narf and be kind of stupid, and very, very happy. Pinky and the Brain was probably the one that had the most executive meddling behind the scenes, but you wouldn't really know it with just watching the show and not really knowing the backstory. But this was really more prevalent when they got into their spin-off show, which I might talk about another day, but I don't know if it'll be enough to hold a full review. But Pinky and the Brain was always really good, had a lot of really clever jokes, and a lot of political jokes looking back, actually. Especially around the 1996 election. Just about all their shorts work, and of course that theme song is amazing. Thank you, Richard Stone, for coming up with such great music. Our next set of shorts are the Mindy and Buttons shorts. Now this one is another little formulaic one, but this one actually has a formula that dates back well into the Looney Tunes days. There's a little girl named Mindy who escapes from her backyard, and then her loyal dog Buttons has to come and save her and try to rescue her from any sort of danger she gets herself into because Mindy is basically a danger magnet. I don't really like these shorts very much, actually. I mean, they're fine if you watch one or two every so often. But the problem is these are probably one of the most formulaic of the shorts, and also it's another one of those where you really, really like the protagonist, but he never gets his retribution or never gets a reward in the end, and that's fine, but he also gets scolded for doing something that he's supposed to do. I mean, Buttons is the most loyal, kind, faithful dog this side of Runt, who we'll talk about next, but he always gets scolded for doing what's right, and he never really gets attention for anything he does. I mean, this dog should be dead because of all the stuff he goes through. He gets flattened, squashed, shocked, caught on fire, anything, you name it, and it's happened to Buttons. But yet he still loyally tries to defend Mindy because, well, that's his family, and he really likes his family, and he wants to keep his family close to him. But nevertheless, he always gets yelled at for trying to save Mindy, where if it wouldn't be for him, Mindy would probably be dead. Albeit, because Mindy is a bad luck magnet, she's also a dumb luck magnet because a lot of really random things happen to her to get her back into her backyard. Every so often they'll change it up, like put them in a futuristic superhero setting, or put them under the sea, but even still, I've never really liked the Mindy and Buttons cartoons, and they were the only ones that ever since I first saw the show, I don't know, 6 years ago maybe, that I never liked. I don't know what it was, but I think that Ben the Looney said it best. Mindy isn't worth saving, and I feel sorry for the really poor dog. Man, I must be the first person to quote that guy in so long. He's kind of fallen out of the public eye. Next, Rita and Runt. This one was a little bit of an interesting turn for a number of reasons. First of all, Animaniacs is a comedy, but Rita and Runt were the shorts that always took themselves the most seriously. Granted, they didn't have a lot of humorous ones, but a lot of them, in fact, most if not all, there must be one or two humor-based ones, but most are just about the story and how well the characters work. Runt is an excitable, happy, kind of dim-witted dog, very dim-witted, has a little bit of a speech impediment. And then Rita is an independent, kind of self-made cat who's voiced by Bernadette Peters of Broadway fame. They actually managed to get her on there because Steven Spielberg's name has a lot of weight. So she got on and she sings at least twice an episode and is actually very good at it because it's Bernadette Peters. But even Runt with his weird voice sounds good when he sings, albeit he doesn't sing nearly as much as Rita does. But yeah, like I said, these ones definitely have the biggest story and definitely take the most risk because, well, they stand out really, really much from the others where they're more focused on comedy and zaniness. This one has zaniness, yes, and a little bit of comedy here and there, but it's about the story and the characters, especially the Les Mis parody and the one in ancient Egypt. Those two especially I can name. It's about a dog and a cat, Rita and Run, searching for a new home because they don't have a home anymore, whether it be because they left or got abandoned. It explains it in the pilot. You gotta go see to check it out. And, well, just about their escapades, trying to find a new home. And yeah, I really like it. The stories always work, the actors are great, and the characters are wonderful. What's not to love? Now let's talk about The Good Feathers. The Good Feathers is one of the most divided series because you either love them or you hate them. I like them. I mean, I don't love them. Of the ones I like, they're probably the ones I might like the least, but I still really like them a lot. As you can tell, it's a parody of The Goodfellas, and it's about a set of three pigeons, Bobby, Squit, and Pesto, oh boy, Pesto, who try to make their names for themselves in the city and, kind of just assert their authority as birds. A lot of people don't really like this because it's just kind of strange and really odd because they don't really have a consistent style. Unlike the Warners, which is all about zaniness and innuendos, and Pinky and the Brain, which is about all the meddling and stuff and political in-jokes, or Rita and Runt trying to tell a compelling story, the Good Feathers kind of try to do all and yet none of these. None of their shorts really have a consistent flow to them. They don't really have a consistent tone. Sometimes they're really trying to be serious, sometimes they're trying to be absolutely insane, sometimes they're trying to be both, sometimes they're just trying to do their own random thing. It's really strange, but for the most part I like these. There's one or two I'm not that big on, but when they don't get it right, they just don't get it right. But when they get it right, they get it right pretty well. Not one of the most standout-ish, except for Pesto. Pesto is easily the best character in this and makes it worth watching. Because he is a parody of Joe Pesci. Yeah, a parody of Joe Pesci in a children's show. Yeah. Joe Pesci is I think you might know who he is if you're any bit familiar with Goodfellas or any of that. Kind of actor, high-pitched voice, very angry a lot. He was one of the bandits in Home Alone. Anyways, Pesto is exactly that, especially with Squid. Because he and Squid don't get along, so sometimes he'll take a word that somebody says and then thinks that they're insulting him by calling him that. Like, cracker? You calling me a cracker? Are you saying I'm a large sodium-covered square here to amuse you? Is that what you're saying? Kind of stuff like that. And yes, of course, I'm aware of that double entendre that I just said in there. I think that was intentional. But the Good Feathers were never really outstanding, but I do think that they were very fun to watch. Now, Chicken Boo. It's about a giant chicken who escapes from his farm and tries to disguise himself as a human, and that's kind of it. Remember how I said Minion Buns was the most formulaic? Well, I meant that because it has the most formula that it likes to stick to. At least they put some variety in there. All the Chicken Boo cartoons are literally the same. I don't even call it formulaic. That's why I gave the title to Minion Buttons, because Chicken Boo is literally the same cartoon over and over again, just with different skins. All of them can be described as somebody is really excited to meet somebody. They meet the person. It turns out to be Chicken Boo. They try to tell the person who's with this person that Chicken Boo is a chicken and not actually a person. They don't believe them until Chicken Boo gets unmasked, and then everyone says, "Oh, you're a giant chicken," and then he leaves, and then cue theme song. That is literally all of them, and probably my least favorite of the shorts, actually. I used to like the Chicken Boo ones until I realized, hey, I've seen 4 of these and they're all the same. And then I really stopped liking these. Very quickly. I mean, even the people on board said we don't know how we managed to make so many of these, because they're all the same. It's just Chicken Boo putting on a disguise, and then getting this guy taken off, and then everyone freaks out because he's a giant chicken. It would have worked if they just did it once, maybe twice, but because they do it like 12 times at least, it just doesn't work. And it could have worked if they just threw some interesting spins on it. I mean, come on! It's just a giant chicken wearing human clothes And then that's it. No variations. Nothing. I mean, yes, sure, sometimes he'll be Robin from Batman. Other time he'll be a football-playing valedictorian who's dating Katie Kaboom. But that doesn't matter. It's just a skin. It's just a mod, I guess, if you will. The Chicken Boo ones are very, very uncreative. And like I said, my least favorite of the Animaniacs lineup. Now let's move on from Chicken Boo to Slappy Squirrel, the crankiest of creatures in the whole wide world. She used to be a Looney Tunes character, not in actuality, but in universe, and from back in the 30s and 40s, but now she's retired, kind of, because she still does all those zany, insane, explosive, slapstick, violence type stunts that you see all the time in Looney Tunes cartoons. And then the cartoons focus on either her raising her nephew Skippy, whose parents are nowhere around, or just messing with her old foes, Walter Wolf, Beanie the Brain Challenge Bison or whatever, and all those people. Slappy's is, well, they're just like the old Looney Tunes cartoons. Fun, explosive, exciting. That is when she's facing her foes. When she's raising Skippy, they're kind of the same, although they do a lot of really strange, unique things like Bumby's mom. But I think both of these actually really work. I don't really know which ones I prefer, because really it depends on your mood. If you're looking for a lot of slapstick violence, cartoony physics stuff, you gotta go to the ones where she's challenging her old rivals. If you want to see just a bunch of classic Animaniacs style writing, you go to the one where she's with Skippy. Albeit towards the end, it seemed like they were more focusing on just the ones with her and Skippy, but those are good too. And Slappy herself is also a great character. Part of that has to do with the voice acting, which really helps give her that both old feeling and also energetic feeling. It's kind of like the old hip grandma who tries to still stay cool and relevant, but kind of does it better and not cliched and not quite like that. Slappy is very hard to describe, but check her out. She's definitely worth seeing because I think all of her cartoons actually are really good. Now the Hip Hippos. It's about two giant hippos that move to Burbank and they sing opera, and that's kind of it. They're not good, they're not bad, they're just kind of flat. Ironic that they're considered flat. There's just nothing really that stands out much about them. The singing was done better in Rita and Runt, the cartoony violence was done better in Slappy Squirrel, and all the wordplay was done better in the Warners and Pinky and the Brain stuff. All the stuff that they do well is done better in other segments. Simple as that. Now we move on to the most controversial segments. A lot of people don't know about these unless they've seen a lot of Animaniacs like I have, but there was a series of shorts that were on, only lasted 2. Parents didn't like these, which I'll get into, so they ended up having to replace them. The Minerva Mink cartoons. It's about a shallow, gold-digging, superficial mink who is looking for a handsome, rich man to be with, while a bunch of creepy guys try to stare her down and gawk at her beauty. Yeah, can you see why parents didn't like this? It's very, very over-sexualized. And not in a very funny way either. I mean, I heard a lot about what the Minerva Mink cartoons went through, and after that, why she was just kind of shoved in the background if appeared at all. But 50% of each of these episodes, I'm going to say every episode, but there's only 2, it's just wild takes because, someone saw someone attractive, and then they're doing all those weird facial expressions or noises, which are done way better, again, in the Warner segments, whenever they see any handsome girl / guy, because, Dot's in there. That's just half of the short, and then the other half is just nothing. There's no real substance to them. And yeah, it is very, very uncomfortable. Not just when you look into it, but even on the surface level. It's not very enjoyable, it's just kind of lame, and the Minerva character is not very good at all. I'm sure she would have gotten more development as the series went on, just like with everybody, but still, she's not a good character for what we have right now, and I'm not going to factor in what we could have gotten or would have gotten. I'm factoring in what we have now, and what we have now is a very boring, shallow character. So after Minerva was cut, we got a new series of shorts which were frequently considered the least popular, the Katie Kaboom cartoons. based off one of the staff members' nieces who would always get angry at everything, and the Incredible Hulk. It's about a teenage girl who, well, again, gets mad at stuff and then causes a lot of trouble because she transforms into monsters and stuff. Her introduction was not the best. Now, granted, the episode was funny, but the way they introduced her was kind of a problem, which I don't think helped with her popularity. See, there was a very hilarious episode where they decided to mix up all the characters, like putting Pesto and Runt together, or Slappy and the Warners, where she takes Dot's place, Rita and Pinky, Mindy and the Brain, stuff like that. It was super, super funny. But one of the problems is, this was Katie Kaboom's intro. They put her with Chicken Boo, which, I said, Chicken Boo, not a very good character. Which, that alone is a problem, but they introduced Katie Kaboom in the one that's just supposed to be the most insane, weird, out there episode where they mix everything together. I don't think that was the best foot forward for this. And yeah, it didn't really help with their popularity. It's a little formulaic, yes, but I kind of watch them because the designs are interesting for all the stuff she transforms into and all the stuff she does. That's really the crux of it. I mean, yes, it's kind of the same short frequently with different skins, kind of like Chicken Boo, but I guess they put enough variety on it, and they put a lot of work into the character designs for what she turns into and what she does when she's in those forms. And they're really funny too, and I like her family, I like Katie herself, they're good characters. But the premiere and the fact that she had less and less cartoons as they went on didn't really help. She didn't appear in any of the games, she didn't appear in any of the extra stuff, like the Macadamia song, which was parodying the Macarena, was supposed to have every major character in there, with a couple new ones like Pip and the Wally Llama, who were just really popular in general. Katie was nowhere in sight. She didn't even appear for a second in that song, which kind of shows just how unpopular she was at the time. Personally, I think Chicken Boo should have deserved that rap. I can kind of see why people didn't like Katie as much, because she came in midway through the show. She replaced Minerva, which was already an established character that was in the theme song. Katie didn't appear in the theme song. She was just always kind of a sideline character, which I don't really think is fair. I mean, if you're going to go through all the work of replacing one of your main characters, you gotta at least give her some sort of promotion, or people aren't going to care about her, or are just not going to remember her. And that seems to be what's happened with Katie Kaboom over time. Not the best of shorts, but far, far from the worst. I really think that people should give her a bit more of a chance, but I can definitely see why you wouldn't like him if you don't. And before we wrap up, Animaniacs was also known for its shorts, like Good Idea, Bad Idea, or Mime Time. The former being exactly what it sounds like. Mr. Skellingbones, who was the, I guess, character for that, just going around explaining some good ideas and bad ideas, although he himself wouldn't do the explaining. And then Mime Time is a mime doing stuff and then getting hurt, because the people on the show hate mimes for some reason. They're both really fun, really funny, and also really quick. So even if you don't like one of the segments, it's only going to be 30 seconds. So, that was Animaniacs. As a whole, it's a very mixed bag. But the parts that are good, like Rita and Runt, the Warners, Pinky and the Brain, they're great. They're really, really good. While the ones that aren't so good, like the Hip Hippos or Chicken Boo, they can range from just not very good to But the only real major stinkers I can say are Chicken Boo and, if you see too much of them, Mindy and Buttons. Even the Minerva Mink ones are okay, because at least those have some interesting animation, until you realize it gets really, really old. But yes, I do give Animaniacs the Archibald seal of approval, whether or not you have those bad characters or bad shorts in there. Animaniacs as a whole really does deserve its popularity. It was really fun, it was really funny, the animation was fantastic, and I'm a proud owner of an animation cell from it. Actually, from the season 4 finale. Yeah, if you don't believe me, go and check out my old cell collection video. I've updated it a bit since then, and hopefully I'm going to make a new video about that, but that's aside the point. So folks, thanks for watching, and if you want me to talk about Freakazoid, Pinky and the Brain spinoff, or Pinky Elmira and the Brain, feel free to let me know, and I might get to it someday. And what do you guys think of Animaniacs? Comment below and let me know. Alright, see you next time on TV Talks, folks. Goodbye.